everyone, this is Andy. I'm at GuitCon2018 and I'm joined by the folks from Intheblues, Shane and Rick. Thanks for hanging out with me here.
It's great to be here.
No worries. Our pleasure.
Yeah. That's just funny that we've been we started off as your average guitar playing guy, and now we're getting into data, and now we're dealing with new technology with now how we're supposed to edit our videos in 4K, and it's just do you see that kind of helping you as a player, or is it kind of distracting, do you think?
That's a good question. I find it both. I love having new tech and making my videos look as polished as I can.
Right.
I'm right into learning about that kind of stuff. It's sort of become a passion over the years too.
Right.
So for me, it is a distraction if your setup's not working correctly.
Right.
And if you can just walk into a room and hit record, then it's easy. If you have to, like we've shot a lot of videos where we manually have to go somewhere and set everything up, like 3 or 4 cameras.
Right.
Make sure that everything's white balanced, and by the time we get going, I'm like, oh man, I'm fried. So it can be a distraction, but I think if you're making music-related video, I think it's almost more important that the audio is good over the video to some extent.
Sure.
But it's almost gotten to a point in time where I think new creators need to start strong. Like they need to have a relatively good camera and understand how it works, and start out with, decent content, and then they'll evolve it over time.
That's some good advice, because we probably both get the same questions. What's some tips for new YouTubers? And I think you're right. There's a lot more pressure on starting right out of the gate with some like just having a solid background of editing and gear knowledge and everything.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I started out with, is maybe as a rule, is to the cam mic was a pretty popular thing in the early YouTube days, and I was like, no, this can't happen. Everything has to be mic'd up properly, because otherwise, how do you know that compression is coming from the pedal or from the built-in mic? I
got a quick sort of question / comment. We noticed, going back to some of the older videos we shot of amps with just a room mic,
right? How
great it sounds.
Yeah.
You know how I think when you close mic something and you're getting it like a studio recording, which works great in the context of a mix. Mm-hmm. But I always find, like, if you're doing an amp video, it's almost more beneficial to hear it how you'd hear it almost if you were standing in the room.
I think so.
It's something that I've always struggled with. I still do the close mic, or I do use other alternatives, but there's something to be said about those old videos where an amp's loud in a room and you hear it like reflecting off the walls. It's quite
you get a sense of realism. You could feel. I mean, maybe you don't have the same frequency response, being represented, but yeah, you definitely. Like when last year I was looking at other GuitCon videos, trying to figure out what to do here, and obviously the Pete Thorne one with just the cranking the amp in the room, obviously it was just the iPhone, and the audio was just like, But you could feel that power,
totally.
You could tell. I think then technology has certainly helped, like with the aux, the UA aux that I use to record. I do a close mic, but then I use that as my room, because the amp is in this tiny vocal booth. It has foam. That was always the hardest thing, to kind of keep it sounding real. It's a nice close mic that you could probably put into a mix, but that's so. How do you record? Both of you with representing the gear.
Kind of do a mix of stuff.
Yeah.
From one of the things I use the most, if I'm doing pedal demos, is the 2 Notes Torpedo.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I can get a Celestion IR for the amp that I'm using, or Eminence one or whatever, and chuck it in there, and I'll have a good representation of that. Because if you got to watch your ears too. I mean, there's times where I'd go to Rick's place and we'd shoot amps cranked, and by the end of it we were fried. So we've kind of tried everything. I tried a box with what are they called? Isolation cabinets. And that I couldn't ever get that to sound. I couldn't get it to sound like how it would sound any other way, unless I had the lid off, which defeats the purpose. Or any other ways we've done it in the past?
Well, we've obviously gone direct as well, because Shane's got a Kemper. And that's probably a dirty word to some people, but awesome. It sounds really good, and I'm a valve amp, tube amp snob. I won't gig with anything else, but I have to reluctantly agree that the Kemper does sound great for a lot of different things. Maybe not so great for pedal demos.
No, I feel the same way.
But yeah, certainly the what are they called?
Yeah, IRs, the impulse response.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you can load them up, and they sound great because they're recorded, with great mics and through great gear. So, yeah, we're not too proud to sort of investigate the brave new world of modelling, and we made a whole lot of tele videos using. I've got a Line 6 Helix.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, I used to think Line 6 was a bit ordinary. It was great when it first came out. Remember the pod, that red kidney-shaped thing? And, yeah, but no, that it's getting closer as well. And I think if you subjected people to a blind test, they would struggle at times.
I should also point out we made a point not to mention the amp we were playing through.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got a small wall of amps behind me, 3 or 4.
Oh, interesting.
And we didn't say anything about what we were plugged into, so we had a deluxe reverb going into the Helix with a cloner, I think, or a tube screamer or something.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Oh, the tone's awesome, the tone's great. Oh, what are you using?" We had 5 videos in the series, so we let it go, and then I mentioned it was a Helix. Everyone's like,
"What?
Wow, that's digital."
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it works. And I've seen Rick play it live, and I plugged into it for a couple of songs on one particular jam we went to, and it felt great. It felt really good.
Yeah.
And I always thought, even going back to the Kemper, I thought that was kind of like a glorified modeling amp because I didn't understand what it was sort of doing.
Right.
And then once I was like, oh, so this is what it does. It's the ultimate record. Those things make recording just perfect.
Yeah.
And the older you get as well, and being around loud all the time isn't good.
No. Yeah, it takes a toll. I was in the room, that same room that I use now for recording amps. In the early days of PGS, I was in that room with the camera and the amp, and got a little bit of tinnitus. Yeah, luckily it's not a pitch. I just thank the universe that it's not a sound. It's just kind of like But that's some scary stuff, and something that people should really be concerned about. But with the Kemper stuff and the first intro song for the Pro Guitar Shop theme. I don't know if you remember it. It was kind of had this panning shot, and there's like this sort of bluesy intro, and I for the longest time I got questions on what that was, and is that a JTM 45 or whatever, and I was like, no, that's Guitar Rig.
What?
And like was it? Yeah, one of the earliest versions too, because that was 2007.
That was a fat sound. That was a great sound.
I mean, I think what I did was I was running through this Bellari tube preamp. Remember those?
Yeah.
And that wasn't really like getting a lot of overdrive itself, but it does help, So like, I like the kind of hybrid thought, Like I don't know if this has been available much, but I would think that some of that modeling Kemper stuff combined with with some tubes in there. Have you guys seen any kind of stuff?
Well, yeah, certainly a mate of mine, I've got a couple of mates who run studios, and they still say if you're using this digital front end, if you somehow get it through tubes, like a tube, a high quality tube preamp, it just adds that warmth and that sort of even harmonic that it just sounds natural.
Right.
And
I think it's just how it treats the transients. Right?
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So, valves will always need tubes.
Yeah.
The Two Notes Torpedo only replaces the speaker. So it takes the load of the amp, so you've got everything going into that. I mean, it's not perfect, but once you understand how it works, you can get a really accurate, I've done blind tests between the speaker IRs and the actual speaker.
Yeah.
And it's so close. Unless you were in a situation where you were hearing both and you knew which one was which. If I hadn't mentioned on the video, like, which was which, people liked either. So it's, I just love the right tool for that particular job. I always use those for pedal videos because I feel like I'm still using the amp. The only thing I'm sacrificing is the speaker. But for me to get an Eminence Swamp Thing speaker, like,
it's going to take some power.
It'll peel the paint off the wall. So where I live, I can't just crank everything up all the time. I can do it in certain hours of the day, but not all the time.
I think we're in the same boat because I use the mixture of aux and the deluxe, and then I think that's just where it's a nice way to do things and still be able to not get the cops called on you. You can still produce things at home. And
I know Mick and Dan just did a big aux video,
right.
And they did mention that the aux can sometimes get a little bit of this sort of top end artifact, where your amp sounds a bit more distorted than it should. Have you had that experience as well with the
I think it's and it's not so much just the aux in general. I hear that a lot in a lot of sort of speaker simulation, where I think it's because it's such a clean, like, you know, when you just plug direct into a PA or something, you have the full frequency spectrum.
Yeah.
I think it's you know, maybe it's the case of companies just kind of giving you more than you need as far as the spectrum. Maybe.
Yeah.
So there's a really great EQ built in. There's a couple of plugins built into the aux, a compressor and their plate reverb and EQ. I think it's just kind of up to us to really kind of shave off some of those frequencies. And maybe they didn't do it as much because you know, some people might want those frequencies, but yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, it's like how lo-fi should they start? You know, I mean, you know, it's always easier to kind of crush things and make it sound brown. But if they started off that way, you know, maybe they did some testing, and it's better to kind of give you a little bit more cleanliness, and then you could degrade it all you want.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
So, well, this has been great talking tech with you guys and meeting you for the first time. It's been a great, you know, just a great first video for me here at GuitCon. So thanks again, guys, and thanks for watching, everyone.
Yeah, cheers.
See ya.